Hello everyone, welcome back to Alex Nines. How you all doing? Yeah, it's been a bit of an interesting 24 hours, isn't it, as a West Ham fan? I think certainly there is an element of just we don't know what's going on. And that's natural, I think, given the fact that we just got relegated from the Premier League. There was a meeting yesterday with Nuno and the board, and it seems that there's a bit of a standstill right now as to whether he will be here next season as West Ham United manager. But more importantly as well, I think we need to know who we're going to get in if Nuno isn't going to be here. Now, to give a bit of clarity, it's still unclear whether the reason Nuno is here still is because he wants to be here or because we haven't found a replacement yet. So we're just going to keep him on the books, officially until we find someone that's better. I would say better, someone that will actually take the job and hopefully get us up. Which brings us to today's video, which is going to be about Scott Parker, because that is a name I've heard around the lips of Hammers fans for a while now, ever since relegation became a likely scenario, and we thought, oh, Scott Parker's probably going to get sacked from Burnley. It just makes sense, and obviously we like getting free managers at West Ham, don't we? We're not going to pay for a manager at West Ham United. It's just not what we do. So, yeah, I think I'm going to discuss the pros and the cons today, really. But before we get into that, if you guys could do me a little favour, just make sure you hit that like, comment, and subscribe button. Your guys' support recently has been absolutely amazing. Genuinely means so much to me that you guys are still checking out the content and getting involved. And yeah, I know obviously it's a bit of a sad time for the Hammers and for all of us who are West Ham fans. So genuinely, thank you very much for sticking by in this what is a very tricky time as a fan. Because you just don't know what's going on. You don't know how to feel. You don't really know what even next couple months hold. You don't know who's going to be here. You don't know what players you can support, what player you can get behind, and that is tricky, isn't it? But going back to Scott Parker, I think it's an interesting choice, only because I think in the short term it's brilliant. Right, Scott Parker's championship record is something that cannot be denied. It is a brilliant record at championship level football. He has just been incredible in that division. The issue is when he comes back up to the Premier League, he seems to struggle. Now, I was having a great chat with some West Ham fans on the way back from the stadium. Obviously, you get put in the stop and go situation. You're going to stand next to some people. You're going to start having conversations, aren't you? It's just natural. You're going to have those conversations. And we were talking about, if Nuno goes, who would we want to come in? And these two, gentlemen were saying Scott Parker, and I was like, I don't know, because it's very much a short-term fix. And they mentioned to me that Scott Parker's not really had that many good teams in the Championship. They've gone up to the Premier League because he's been good at getting them out of it, but as soon as they get to the Premier League, the squad's not good enough. And I do think that West Ham have an opportunity here, a golden ticket, to, although we're going to get rid of a lot of our players, to still have a pretty decent squad in the Championship, and players that can be transferable to the Premier League. I'm talking if Bowen stays, obviously. I'm talking Souček if he signs another contract, because this last year of his contract will be the season going into the Championship. So he might help us get out and then go back to Czech Republic, which he is more entitled to do. He's done more than enough for us and is a certified West Ham legend. So the question really becomes, does Scott Parker deserve chats at West Ham? I'm really unsure. I think it would be a appointment that the fans would get behind immediately because we'd want it to work, right? Scott Parker, West Ham history, decent manager, seems to have a good head on his shoulders. I think the issue is with Scott Parker, when the wheels fall off, they fall off quite quickly, and I'm scared that our board aren't reactive enough to do what's necessary. Now, I never subscribe to the opinion that you should sack a manager if he gets promoted. I think that is ridiculous. I know some fans saying, well, you can get him for the Championship, and then you let him say, goodbye, you're not doing the Premier League. I just didn't think we were going to do that. And I know that some people say, well, you do it with players. I think that's different, though, because I think players can come and go. That it's more than one person. You get rid of the coach and staff, and a manager for doing their job correctly, doing exactly what you appointed them for, I think is wrong. And I also think as well, Scott Parker, yes, he's not been brilliant in the Premier League, but I think you have to give him the first 5 games. If the wheels start coming off and he's not doing enough, get him gone. That's the issue with our board, though, is that they're not cutthroat enough almost to make that decision, to decide, it's not working, Scott. Thank you very much for getting us back to the Premier League, but it's just not going to work out. And overall, I just think that if one of those appointments, I'd be like, okay, we're good for this season. We're going to get out of the Championship. We'll get to the Premier League. But then when it comes to the Premier League, I'm sort of like, ooh, I don't know. You see what I mean? It's in my mind. I'm sat here, I'm stressing. I don't know what to do. I don't really know what to say. And this is because it's such a difficult situation. You don't know what players are going to be here, so you don't know what players are going to match the style. So that kind of lends to Nuno sticking around, because if Nuno stays around, he knows the players already. But Nuno's probably fallen out with a lot of players. It's a whole mess. So let's quickly talk about the other options. Gary O'Neill was someone that's been mentioned. I think he's in a very similar vein to Scott Parker. Maybe slightly better at Premier League level than Scott Parker, maybe not as good at Championship level, which sounds weird, right? He's sort of an in-between man, is Gary O'Neill. I think he'd be brilliant for us, don't get me wrong. He's not a terrible appointment. I actually quite like Gary O'Neill whenever he speaks. He was on Monday Night Football one game this season. I can't remember which one it was. Maybe the Everton game? Maybe. I don't know if it was the Everton game. And he spoke really well on it, and I thought he was really good. He's someone that I think has always been there or thereabouts in, with similar level clubs and done a decent job whenever he's had to. I just don't know whether it's worse than Nuno. I think you have to look at Gary O'Neill and go, yeah, that is worse. Because what Scott Parker is going for him is the connection to West Ham, right? That is ultimately what would turn this from a meh appointment to okay, there's a bit of history here. This is a really good opportunity for a legacy season. Scott Parker comes back, rescues the Hammers, and hopefully we kick on from there. With Scott Parker, that would be the ultimate story. I just don't know whether we'd get to the end of that book. I think we'd get to the second act, we'd get out of the Premier League, but I think we'd be slammed back in the relegation zone with Scott Parker. With Gary O'Neill, I don't think the championship would be as easy, but I think coming up to the Premier League, he'd probably do a better job. Nuno Espirito Santo, I think, would be the best of both worlds, but I don't know whether I want to keep him just because of, again, that Athletic report came out. Rashid Thomas, all the stuff I said. I don't believe that they would lie. I don't know why you come up with a hit piece like that and it'd be all, especially the Athletic, and Rashid Thomas is very good, very reliable. So I don't know why that would be a lie. So if that's Nuno's attitude to stuff, then maybe it's not the right fit. We know Nuno likes things his way. We know Nuno will only do things his way. We saw that with Edu and what happened at Nottingham Forest. And yes, there's a grey area there, because Marinakis kind of alienated Nuno himself. So, maybe there's more to it. But I don't know how to feel about Nuno sticking around. And the other one's Slaven Bilic, who, look, I understand West Ham fans' desire to get Slav back, right? Because the football is a bit crazy, it's a bit fun. But I think this is entirely a nostalgia pick from West Ham fans. I'm going to be honest, I just don't think it'd be the right choice. I think it would be literally probably really silly. Do you remember when there were rumours of Redknapp being asked to come back and manage West Ham? What are we talking about? As a football team, as a club, yes, Redknapp was great. I love Harry Redknapp. I love him, right? There's no issue with me and Harry Redknapp. I don't know him personally. There wouldn't be an issue. But I've got no issue with Harry Redknapp, but it's not going to work in the modern game. It's a different game now. It's a different style, different pace. Yes, Gary Redknapp could probably give a really good team talk. He'd be a great pep talker, but in terms of just getting the actual tactics on the pitch, I don't know. That doesn't sit right with me, that one. So I'm going to say no to Redknapp. Similar thing with Slaven Bilic. Just it's the same thing. I think we moved on. I think we have to move on. We talk about this club having to move on. I think when we get defensive as a fan base, I'm not going to get any fans here. It's only natural. You do it with anything. Say your favourite TV show has a new director or showrunner, and you really like the old times. And you kind of want to go back to those old times. You say, and they can come back and write an episode or two. It's the same sort of thought process, and of course it's comfort, right? It's about being comfortable. It's about doing what you think is best for the club, and you go back to those old times and you really believe that was the best of times, or at least the most probable bit of positivity you can take from what's going to happen, because we're not going to get like Moisey back. I don't think we'd want Moyes back. I certainly wouldn't. It would be a back step. We can't always hit the David Moyes button we need to. And also he's at Everton. I know things have kind of turned sour there towards the end of the season, but I'm sure they'll be back in good nick start the next season. So yeah, I just think the battle for me is between Scott Parker and Nuno Espirito Santo. Again, I think Scott Parker is brilliant for this season. I just worry about next season. I'd love him to work. Look, I'd love him to find that one club that he finally kind of, gets this, he gets this weight off his back about being a Premier League manager. Because, yes, he's not been brilliant in the Premier League. Have his teams been that great? No. What I'd argue is, It's like we're kind of in a golden opportunity where our team's going to get a rebuild. If we rebuild it in his sort of image and his play style, maybe it would work. Because the issue is that when we got to the Premier League, maybe we wouldn't have to do as big of a rebuild as other clubs. I don't know. I'm clutching at straws here when it comes to Scott Parker. I really don't know. I expect to hear about Nuno either today or tomorrow. I'll make another video on that. Probably a live, to be honest, because if that news breaks, it'll have to be a live stream and just discuss. But yeah, this Scott Parker news, I'm really at a crossroads. Please get in the comments down below. Let me know your thoughts on the Scott Parker situation, because I genuinely don't know whether it's just because I'm a West Ham fan. I go, you know what, it'd be a great story, wouldn't it? Or actually it makes sense. I think it perfectly makes sense for the season. I just don't ethically agree with sacking a manager when they've got you promoted. I just don't think it's right. But I also can see us in those first 5 games being stuck in the relegation zone. So it all depends. I think it all depends who we got. If we keep Bowen, Souček, Tati, Mavropanos, which again would be my 4 that I would keep from this current squad, outside of the likes of Walker Peters and Hermansen, you know, those players that will stick around. For me, if we can do that, I think our midfield's pretty solid for Championship anyway, especially if we keep Souček. Like, we're going to lose Fernando, so we might need a playmaker in there, but then again, we're going to get George Earthy back from loan. Can he do something? Maybe. So, you know, there is a squad there, there's a belief there, there is a West Ham core in the team. Now, I think especially going down the Championship, I see a lot of the academy boys being used a lot more, so that could also help the story of, you know, Scott Parker using basically the West Ham academy plus a few legends and Souček and Bowen to help us up. That would be brilliant. I think the story writes itself. I just don't know whether it would have a good ending. So I think the second act would be brilliant. I think the first act, him coming in, second act, we get promoted. What's the third act? Is it a tragedy or is it a hero's welcome? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And for more West Ham content, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys soon. Take it easy and bye bye.